All right, let's see what happens. Let's see. Hopefully people can hear me now. All right, can anyone hear? Thanks for joining. Let's hope this solved the sound issue. Let me know if you can hear me. Thank you so much. Okay, so that is just my phone being a complete and total jerk. Thanks, Apple. I hope that everybody who came early back, because my phone is such junkiness right now. All right, waiting for Jade. Hopefully all the people who were here earlier return. Yeah, my phone, I'm so sorry for the people who left. Hopefully they come back. Hey, Sonia. I'm so sorry. So the problem, I think, is just my phone being super, super weird. I had one person saying they hear me loud and clear. So let's just get Jade back in the room. Hopefully we can get this started. Sorry that the party was delayed. Alrighty. Yay, Sonya here. Okay, so y'all can hear. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. So I think that's a good sign that y'all are here. Okay, so now we're just waiting for Jade to come back in the building. Y'all, I feel so sad about my phone. It's not even a year old yet, and it's trashed. Okay. Jade is about to come back. Well, and Jade is going to be the superstar here. So, like, it's really important that the celebrity. Okay, can you hear me now?
Hey,
Third
Gucci.
time's a charm. Oh, it's not
Yo, I
Gucci because
swear.
my
IG,
iPhone is trash. No, it's my phone. My phone is
it's your
trash.
phone? Okay.
It's my phone. My phone is trash. And we're going to just say that I refuse to get a phone that doesn't have a home button. So I don't. Look, Jade. Let's get right into this conversation. We're gonna figure out my phone situation later. I just want to
All
get
right.
this conversation going because I think it means a lot. I
Yeah.
feel like even if nobody else was here, it would still mean a lot to us, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
And
Sure.
so, yeah, happy Wednesday.
Yes, likewise, likewise.
Okay, so let's start with why we're here.
All right.
I mean, we could get to the introductions later, y'all. First of all, hook Jade up. Jade, follow Jade. In fact, let's get to that part right now. Tell people how they can pay you and follow you and stain for you. Let's start there and then we'll get into the
Check it.
conversation.
Word, yeah. So you can go to my Instagram, Jade Soul Zuberi. It's pretty easy if you go to like the little arrow up top.
Yeah.
And then my Venmo's in the link. So everything's already
Awesome.
laid out for you. If you want to get like specific exclusive information from me that I share, I have a Patreon that's in the link in the bio and stuff as well. So, and I have a course coming up next month on the first, which is unpacking and healing people pleasing. So, yeah,
Wow. Tell the people. Tell the people.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm just gonna say Jade is dope. I found out about Jade last year. I accidentally entered a live. I was just minding my own black business, and Jade was having a conversation about cultural appropriation. I was like, "Rrr!" And ever
Yep.
since then, I've been a fan. You know. So let's get into it. So tonight we're talking about black men collateral damage.
Yes.
Jade, start us off. Like you start, I said this is a word on Wednesday to like
Yeah.
remind folks of the old Bible study days, right? And there's a lot of things that can happen when people hear something that transforms the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so, let's pull out the scripture. We are reading from the book of white women stealing shit. It's an oldie. We didn't. Lord, forgive me, Black Jesus, but I'm
Oh,
just saying. Let's start with why we are having this conversation today.
word.
Tell people.
Yeah, I mean, it essentially this is a topic I feel that needs to be normalized and talked about. and a lot of different frequencies. This is something to kind of give you all that's watching. If you don't know who I am, I'm a multifaceted artist. So my particular work within anti-racism and decolonization resides in the arts community. So that's where I do a lot of my work, is speaking specifically to the music world and also the dance world, and how white supremacy shows up, because it's not, we don't, white supremacy is not a vacuum, right? It's not like in space where you can, oh, now we're in white supremacy water. It's everywhere. So this is something that I've felt, I have seen, and also had to navigate through myself as being a black man in this country, of having to constantly unpack my own inherent anti-blackness and internalized oppression, and how I have used to see white people, and now I'm constantly having to navigate trying to disrupt that type of frequencies now in the arts community, because let's be clear, and be real here, there's a lot of black folks that have Stockholm syndrome still, when they still look to white folks to be the savior, and a lot of times that resides in white women. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with having interracial relationships as long as both parties understands the different dynamics that are at play constantly, and being able to, all right, I'm going to unpack and heal through my things. Cool, I'm going to unpack and heal through my things. Then you can have an authentic relationship. But if none of that is happening, then we're constantly going to be moving and maneuvering through survivor Stockholm syndrome of like, oh, I'm going to get with this person that's not black because there's security in that. And I
Well,
know,
okay, first of all, you
you
said
know,
50,000 things, 5011 things. You ain't even, you fast tracked us. Jay did it. I didn't do it. Okay. I'm gonna blame Jay for this. Like, we flipping around. Like, I started the conversation about black men, but now I'm like, no, let's blame Jade. But you talk about, you said three powerful things, right? You talked about Stockholm syndrome that black people can have. You talked
yeah,
about interracial dating, and you also named the leverage. So let's start with
yes,
the leverage part, because
let's
I
do it.
think that also helps us understand the context. All right. So we're gonna talk about what's kind of like in our ears now, but then we're gonna even go to the historical. So we're gonna
Mm.
do a front to back situation.
Yeah, let's do
And
it.
so I particularly connected with Jade to talk about this in relationship to watching a white woman who has acted out in white supremacy fashion by stealing from black women. All right. And she shall not be named, but that this is what's happening. And in particular, I had some deep feelings. I wouldn't necessarily say negative, but just deep feelings. It was a very triggering experience because black men were working in partnership with this woman that I saw as a thief, right? And I thought I spent a lot of time thinking like, wow, like, damn, like, why are they walking in tandem? Why are they being in
Mm.
partnership? And it made me think, like, why is this a constant thing in our community? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I want to name the fact that I've been given permission to name people. So one of my friends, Jamal, who is this awesome community advocate and leader and activist, was one of the black men who did collaborative work with this person. And so, initially I was like, does Jamal like know what's going on? Da 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 da. And so I felt this pull to talk to him, but honestly, I didn't know how. I didn't know how to
Mm.
breach it. And it also made me realize that outside of the media moment, Jade, we don't know how to have these tough conversations in our community. We don't
Yeah.
know how to say, hey, like, something is not right, something doesn't feel
Right.
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 And to your point, like I said, some of us are walking with Stockholm syndrome, some of us are still really internalizing racism and anti-blackness.
Yeah.
And just to like clear the air here, Jamal eventually contacted me. And we had this really amazing conversation, and we're still actually having the conversation. So it's ongoing about how I feel with him in collaboration with this white person who, again, I'm naming as a white supremacist actor.
Mm.
And what's been beautiful about this ongoing conversation is recognizing two things. That A, it confirmed that this is awkward as hell because we don't have models and frameworks for it. And then two, it confirmed that even when we disagree, we can still see each other's humanity.
Right.
Right. And so I thought to myself that it would be important to talk to Black men in particular about, like, hey, bro, like, you know
Yeah.
what? This is a struggle point for us.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm throwing your voice back into the room because I said earlier, you're the superstar here, right? But why? Let's talk about why we think it's hard for us to have these conversations.
Mm. Yeah. I
And we
personally,
might not have to have any answers tonight, right? Like
absolutely.
everybody
Yeah.
who's listening, we might not have these. We might. In fact, I don't think either of us are trying to have answers tonight.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I know for me personally, I can only speak from what I experience and what I see in my community, with people that I've been in community with, and I personally think I think it really just goes back to history, of
Mm-hmm.
like if until we start to break through generational trauma and really start to break these particular cycles of understanding, like I think we still tiptoe around white folks. I think especially at least as black men anyway, I think we still tiptoe around whiteness and it can be very detrimental to black women and y'all's experiences because at the end of the day, it's like something that I heard. I can't remember who it was from, but it was another black queen, and she was talking about how, at the end of the day, black women have to constantly take the brunt force of violence from racism and then also from misogyny and sexism, and that just like split my wig open because I never heard it articulated like that before. And I was like, damn, that's true. So you all are getting so dehumanized not only through racism and anti-blackness, but also within sexism as well, just with us as men. So
Mm-hmm.
I think with all of that, that's toppled on top of each other as layers, you then have us as black men that is essentially kind of connected to what white women go through within like white feminism. And with black men, it's like, all right, I know I'm being harmed through racism and anti-blackness. So how can I try and climb through the ladder to try and feel like I'm in power within white supremacy?
Let's say
And
that
then we
part
start
again.
feeling.
I need you to back up the train.
I'm gonna try and say it exactly how I did. So I feel, with us as black men, it makes this particular discussion very hard because when we are dehumanized as well through racism and anti-blackness, we then start to say to ourselves, okay, how can I still climb the ladder to get some form of power? And that's why I said it's still connected to white women and white feminism because they know they're being oppressed. They can see it, but then they're like, but how can I climb the ladder to see what it feels like to be a white man? And essentially, the patriarchy is what teaches all marginalized groups, all major groups of color, to essentially step over each other. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're all trying to see what it feels like to be a white man.
Except for black women. I'm gonna say.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
And I think part of that is, right, and I'm not speaking for all sisters and we're not speaking for all black people because we're not a
Right.
monolith, all right,
Yep.
so let's name that. I think because black women know that even when we attempt to model our humanity by like the standard of white maleness,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna let us in,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
right? Or it happens so in between, like so far in between that we're like, yeah, too much to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But to your point, black men and white women, it's an easier climb or it's an easier counterfeit, right?
Yeah.
It's an
I
easier
like that
counterfeit to
counterfeit. Yeah.
exchange,
I love that.
right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we see it all the time in media and in Hollywood. We see it a lot, where I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen so-called activists, black men, in comment sections with white women that are causing harm, whether it's cultural appropriation that they're perpetuating or misogyny or whatever the case may be. And I'm just like, bro, what side are you on? Are we really gonna be about this, or are we not? So
Yeah.
it makes it really difficult for. I think it's kind of like we're holding. It's a double-edged sword. I feel because we have the sharp end to us, which is racism and anti-blackness, but then at the same time we're holding it as well to black women. And it's just
Yeah.
like, and then it builds this lack of trust through generations within the black community. So therefore, it starts to break that bond through blood memories, where we can actually just sit down and be like, hey, we need to have a discourse about this particular thing. So, and
Yeah.
it's like, at the end of the day, you should have felt comfortable to hit up your homie and be like, yo, this is on my heart. I wanted to reach out to you and, as a fam. But the fact that you already were like, I don't know how this is going to go,
Yeah.
that shows we have a lot of work to do as men. A
Yeah.
lot of work
And
to
again,
do.
I want to name out loud that the conversation with my friend has been rich and powerful, right? And I'm
Yes,
glad that he reached out, you know what I'm
for sure.
saying, to provide that love and safety. But it's something you said blood memories, and it brought me back to this moment that a lot of people don't know about. Not a historian, but I love history, I love reading.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to talk about our ancestor Rosa Parks, right?
Mm.
And for so long, people made the narrative about she was just a tired black woman who just couldn't
Right.
get up that day.
Yep.
Bullshit. Lies white people tell.
Right. Right.
White people get the story and they remix it. I mean, we
Yep.
remix it too, but remix it to just make it sexier, more
Yes.
vibrant.
Yes.
When they remix it, they just kind of like.
Yeah.
And so Rosa Parks had been a tremendous activist, community advocate, NAACP leader, had been
Yep.
doing big things on
Yep.
the behalf of black people for a long time.
Yeah.
And she had been deemed or dubbed, a leader in the movement. And right around the time, here comes a young, sophisticated, charming young brother by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Mm.
And there's this moment, there's this switch when people are like saying, you know what? We're going to put our eggs in the basket of the king, right? And we're going to roll it out like this, right?
Mm.
And there's this intimate moment that happens between them where Dr. King has a conversation with Rosa. And y'all, I'm not making this up. And when I post this, I'm going to post a site, a link to a book that shares this, this moment with them. But he essentially tells her, like, look, you've been doing this. I'm just a preacher. Like, I ain't been making moves. Like, I haven't.
Right.
Dr. King didn't start off doing direct action, y'all. He wasn't
Yeah.
like fight
Exactly.
the power. You know what I'm saying? He
Exactly.
was like a good orator. He was a preacher. He
Yep.
was smart. He
Yep.
loved people, right? And so he looks at Rosa. He's like, look, sis, you could, I can support you, however. And Rosa
Right.
looks at him and she's like, you're going to have to drive this bus, right?
Mm.
Because you leading, you becoming the face of this will give us traction as a people,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Like, me being the face of this can only do so much, but I think you being the face will allow us to get to where we need to be. And I think there's something about that moment that still speaks to me today, which is in black women saying, let me make space
Mm.
so we as a collective can get where we need to be,
Right.
right? In some ways has normalized, and I want to be real careful here, Jade, but I think in some ways it's normalized black men being used to black women being, they in a corner somewhere, they got our back somewhere,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
To the extent that, like, rather you feed us or not, rather you check on us or not, they're
Yeah.
like, black women, they're going to hold it down no matter what.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
I think there's a component here of black men, generally speaking, right, being so used to us always being in the background,
Yeah.
staying in all day, all the time, right, that you could take that for granted.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
I don't know if you had any thoughts or reflections,
Yeah,
responses.
I mean it's everywhere. I also just came across to um even like on some popping like dance like dance heritage within blackness of how strutting which is originally from Oakland. You know, strutting and Fillmore and
Look at
everything.
us. Look at us knowing some stuff. We reading and writing. Look at us.
That actually originally that term comes from granny, right? Like that term that comes from a woman. And that was put game on me and I was like, you know what, that makes so much sense. Cause I also remember my actual like grandma saying like go ahead and stretch your stuff. Like that's a very woman like grandma thing to say. You know,
Yeah.
so when I heard that I was like, oh that makes so much sense. But again, like this is something that we see because the dance in general is just such a male dominated thing that we don't take the time and stop and be like, who really coined these particular terms? You know, to
Mm.
give that recognition back and that credit back, so that way we can start to uplift the women that have very much been instrumental into the progression of Black movement. Um, and that's just something that where I'm like, it goes back to what you were saying of like, we get too comfortable. You know, I think we get way too comfortable as men, especially just as Black men in the patriarchy, that we forget to burn the shit down. You know, we forget that we're still attached to something that's against us. So we get way too
Wow.
comfortable. And then we just start doing the exact same thing that is done to us.
So you start wearing silk robes,
What? The silk pajamas?
silk pajamas,
The silk pajamas. We
eating
get too comfortable.
caviar.
We get too
So
comfortable.
so rock in the building.
Exactly. We get way too comfortable in the patriarch that we forget to
So
burn that shit down.
so you roll up in it, and then you like, I came to wait. Oh,
Exactly.
y'all got some nice
Right.
women out here.
Like, okay, first class in there. Oh, cool. I
Yeah,
can do
I mean,
this.
I ain't gonna sit long. I'm just gonna sit in my seat. And I think this is a perfect time to assert white women.
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect. Yep,
Because
perfect
you
segue.
know I had to hit you back with that, right?
Yes,
White
absolutely.
women being used as leverage.
Yeah, yep.
All right, we got to get into it, Jade. What does that
What
mean?
are some thoughts that you have on that as well?
So, okay, so I'm not a man, I'm a woman, but I could just tell you what I've observed, and also like again, what is the data? What is the evidence, right? And so for Black people, and this is Black women or men, right? There's a certain amount of like hustle, get out the hood, make
Yeah,
your parents proud,
yeah, for
get,
sure.
that the American dream, which
Yep,
that shit is toxic for all the people,
absolutely.
right? And so we're all trying to be like, yeah, I'm trying to, make money moves, blah, blah, blah. All
Yeah,
right. So there are different things we can do to change the uniform. So
mm,
code switching for
yep,
Black women, chemically straightening your hair,
yep,
different things you could do to like put on whiteness, to put on
yeah,
white culture, to
yeah,
say, hey, I belong here too,
yep,
right?
yep,
I can do the things too, right? Um, and I think white women particularly serve as a resource for Black men in that game. So again, you could get the formal education, you
right,
could move into the neighborhood, you could drive the Audi,
mm,
and then the piece de resistance is showing up with a white woman.
right,
Now,
yep,
let me also name this. I am not saying that there cannot be true interracial intimacy or even true intimacy with between Black men and white women. But if we
right.
take somebody like Daniel Cameron, the
Mm.
Black brother who
I don't
refused
even
to
know who
get
that
justice
is.
for, oh, Daniel Cameron is the Attorney General. I believe that he was the AG in the
Okay.
case of Breonna Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, who basically didn't let, who obstructed justice
Yeah,
to make sure that Breonna wouldn't get justice. And I don't think you
I
get to
think
be
I
a
did hear
damn,
about that.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't think it becomes easier to be a Daniel Cameron
Mm.
when you have a white partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that's what I'm speaking to, right? Like this idea that what are the things you can do to get white approval?
Mm. That's a lot to unpack. Woo! Oh man, there's so much. There's so much because being inside the arts community, I see it everywhere, everywhere. And I feel it also goes back to, I also want to really specifically touch on this as well, of like, I completely agree. I'm sure there are some relationships out there where people are authentically with someone that is of a different race, and they're authentically aware of the dynamics and social constructs at play, and they constantly hold space within the intersections. But it's very rare though. And I do feel, especially too, even being myself, and being in a relationship for over like 4 years with someone that was white as well, my partner, that has to have been something we constantly were going and talking through, and being with a therapist who's black and also queer as well. So also like having the conversations of like constantly unpacking anti-blackness and how that shows up. But I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest ways that we end up getting white approval is by letting everybody into the cookout without having a bouncer there. I don't think we have bouncers. Like, if we really want to think of black culture as a club, we don't have bouncers. We just don't. We talk about you can't let everybody in the cookout, but then everybody's in the cookout. And then we get mad about it. And it's like, I get it, but then are we going to have bouncers here? We're going to start implementing bouncers who are like, nah, bro, those are braids. Them braids belong to black women. Sorry. Nope. You know what I mean? Like we got to start having these type of bouncers, like there's no reason why we cannot have bouncers at a cookout. Like, I'm just saying, like, come on. I'm just saying.
You got some dreads. You got dreads in your hair.
Like, nah, yo, nah, don't belong to black women. Give them back.
Okay, so let's talk about. Okay, I'm going to bring it back. I bring everything back to enslavement, Jade.
Let's do it.
Hang out with me longer than 10 minutes. I'm going to do it. All right? We're hitting all the historical notes here, too, right? I want to name the fact that on your average plantation, white womanhood is protected rhetorically, physically, legally, in all the ways, right?
Yep.
And I'm also going to say this. We're on the Anti-Blackness reader page, but I just want to name this too, that protection is really surveillance. White women, check into it. That's all I'm going to say about that. But protected, right? To the extent that a black man can lose his damn life for even looking.
Exactly.
And so in a way, white women become this can't have. This ultimate, like, what do you call it? It's
forbidden fruit.
Forbidden fruit, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something in that, like blood memory, something in that pathology about wanting to have all the things that white men can have.
Right.
The power, the access again. And so I think in a lot of ways, white women get to be the vehicle.
Yeah. Yep.
To that.
Yep.
And so historically, what does it mean that becomes this, like white women in particular become this thing that shows someone's vitality, right? Their manliness, their ability. So I think there's an attachment there too, in a sense that you want to show that you have ultimately made it.
Yeah.
Then white women also get to be that thing. They become like a souvenir. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think too, on the flip side, it's a way of white women to prove that they're a good person. Because if we're even talking about plantation days, obviously I don't know for sure, but I can at least speculate around how things would go. If we know that black people were enslaved through human trafficking and everything and chattel slavery, and off GP, if you're someone's sister or someone's cousin, whatever, and you're a white woman, you're seeing this, and you're like, maybe I should go over to Jamal or whatever the case is, right? Or Derek, and go tell him how much I see his humanity, right? And try to believe in him to try and save him. That's a slippery slope already of white women trying to essentially save us from our own damnation of being seen lesser than from how the white man sees us. And then it's like, cool, if I'm with him, that then means in the world, if he sees me as a good person, then all black people should. Which is why you also see from a lot of white folks where it's like, well, I know I'm not racist because I have a black family. I'm not racist because we have mixed kids, right? I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard this through comment sections when I have to check white women on their racism and anti-blackness. I'm not racist because I've been married to my husband for 15 years and he's black. That's not how that works. You know that's not how that works. In my opinion,
y'all would be the worst ones if you ask me.
The worst, the absolute worst. And I can't remember who said. I think it was Joe. I can't remember his name, but one of the activists were talking about how close proximity to oppression does not mean you are absolved from actually acting it out. Like, that's not how that works. Just because you are in an interracial relationship with someone that's black or someone that's Latina does not mean that all of a sudden now you're good. You have immunity. That's not how that works. If anything, you got to be more in the books. You got to be more in the courses. You got to be more in the community.
You got to be digging in.
Exactly. Because then that means if you're closer to proximity to us, that means you can cause even more harm. So you got to do way more work. You got to do way more work. And this, and essentially, this is why I feel I both have hope for interracial couples, and then I also have a mistrust at the same time, because even though the relationship that I've had with my partner who's white, she's had to do extensive deconstructing of her whiteness for the last 2 years. And I was on her constantly of like, hey, no, we need to study under these people. We got to read these books. We got to be in these, like, everything, right? We got to have these constant discussions. There was times where she would trigger me, and I'm like, okay, so we're going to talk about that, you know? So there was a lot of, like, fights and friction, because it's a lot of unlearning conditioning. And essentially I'm like, we're not taught to do that. So when I do see an interracial couple, usually all I can say is, I really hope they're doing the work internally. I really hope. All I can say is I hope. Because it's not taught for us to see each other as our humanity and really start to get to the nitty gritty of, I know as a man I can oppress you as a man, even though you're white. I know as a white woman, I can oppress you because of race and anti-blackness. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and start unpacking that. These conversations need to be normalized if we really authentically want to have relationships. Otherwise, we're just building lies. We're building more lies, and it's all a trauma response to start teaching our kids on how to survive. Go ahead and get you a woman that's of lighter shade. Why is that? Because that means you're going to be better off in society. Go ahead and get you a man that's closer to wealth. Why is that? Because you're going to be better off in society.
Yeah.
We're literally causing more harm.
Yeah. You're preaching to the people. It's both a denial of the reality, but also it's a lack of reflection on even the embodiment of white supremacy. Right? Yeah. And so I don't say this a lot because people get freaked out, right? We talk a lot about racism, we talk about all these things, but we don't name out loud that is, like you said, blood memory. It's encoded in our body. So just like anti-blackness is encoded in me, that white supremacy is in you. Yep. And so if we can't start from that, if we can't start from the fact that your genetic material,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Just like the body, and this is like look, y'all, I'm not a scientist, but look, read The Body Keeps the Score, right? My grandmother's hands really talk about that physiological connection to violent systems that the body holds, right? Yeah. And so I think that it's an easy fix to say, I'm in relationship, I'm close to black people, I'm close to brown people, I'm close to queer people. Absolutely. And so that intimacy gives me an entrance.
Yeah.
What do we do as a community of black people And I struggle, Jade, right? Even I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, they're gatekeeping. They're gatekeeping.
Right.
And I think that there's a certain need for that, right? And I'm not saying who the bouncer needs to be. I love this analogy. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to think about it, right?
Yeah, use it, use it.
But what's the point of a bouncer if too many of us are?
Yep, and that's the $1 million question right there. I still don't know. I think it's I really
Because
think
we
it's a
could
matter
have
of
bouncers. We could have bouncers.
yeah,
But it goes back to the like, and let me tell you, I don't have to talk about somebody else. I could talk about me. I
right.
could talk about Keena hooked on whiteness because I was on the shit real bad,
Yeah,
right? How I felt it was okay to disregard other black people. It
right,
was normalized for me to be like, well, why she gotta have her hair like that? Why
right,
is her
right.
nails like that? I mean, it's
Yeah,
night and day, Jade, me
absolutely,
being delivered from that, right? And
absolutely.
recognizing I was literally taught to hate everything about this.
Yep.
And so people think I'm joking when I say I've literally had to learn how to love my black ass, but I'm being
Yes,
serious,
I'm still
right?
working through it. Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so I think that whether we want to name that or not,
Mm,
being in proximity with white people in power or whatever, it creates a diversion of some sort.
yeah, it does. I personally feel I'm gonna speak only through my experience and like how I constantly am navigating through um, the arts community because this has had to have been something like nobody told me, oh, when you start speaking about this, you're gonna lose a lot of relationships. I'm just letting you know that now. Nobody told me that. Like I had to do everything on myself. I had to figure out where all the knowledge was at. I had to figure out the terms myself. I had a little bit of help, but mostly I did all that work myself and figuring out like who the Rachel Cargills was, who the Sincerely Letty's was, like the Weez.
Right
I
out,
had to
shout
come
out, shout
across.
out, shout out, shout out.
Yes, shout out to
Okay,
him. I had to figure out where all y'all work. So essentially I was like, man,
that's
it
because you had
was
to get past the white people.
exactly. Exactly. So I'm like, man, no one told me how much loss I was going to experience through and we kind of talked about it yesterday on our phone call where I was like, the amount of loss from both sides, from those that have internalized oppression to the point of damn near no return, where people that I used to think was my brothers, my sisters, and then there was people that are just white or who have internalized whiteness that are non-black. So I was just losing loss from left and right. And I'm
Yeah,
like, at the end of the day, what I kept telling myself was, I'm not doing this for me. I am doing this for the future. I'm not doing this
yeah,
for me. I'm doing this for the future. I have to do this for those that come after me. Because if I don't do this, and if I don't get other people on board to start doing this for them, and for the people that come after them, then we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle. And nothing's going to get done. And I think ultimately we have to put at a higher value our own blackness over whiteness. Because
yeah,
I feel whiteness is something that is a very temporary good feeling, but long term it damages us, right? Like it's
yeah,
like there's been so many different gigs musically and dance wise I've had to like decline because it's not in alignment with what I stand for as a black
yeah,
person. I know if I'm working with Red Bull, right? This is something that I've been very vocal about not supporting. I know Red Bull personally, they work with a lot of dancers and they've hit me up plenty of times. I'm like, nah, I'm good. But I know if I was to say, sure, I'm down, I'm then perpetuating the very system that I'm claiming to tear apart. So we have to be more having these type of conversations internally, especially as black men, to say, is whiteness worth protecting or is blackness more worth
yeah.
protecting for us? But if we are
That's
still
so
not taught,
good.
yeah, but if we're still not taught to value ourselves and implement particular boundaries that are radical, then we're always going to go to the other side, which is whiteness. So at the end of the day, we got to just start normalizing these type of conversations with ourselves and asking ourselves these difficult questions.
Whiteness will let you get gains, but it will never let you win. It wasn't designed for that,
That right there. That right there.
right? You can get gains and you can make a come up, but it was not designed for you to win.
Absolutely.
What would it take, Jade, for us to? So here's the thing. I think a lot of people feel like I think a lot of people feel like we need white people, right? For legitimacy,
Right.
for whatever reason. There's fill in the blank.
Yeah.
What would it look like if tomorrow all black people woke up and knew they didn't need white folks?
That's a powerful question. That's a powerful question. I just want all the black people in here just to ask yourselves that question daily if you can. Just ask yourself that question and really see what answer comes back to you, because that is a powerful question. I personally feel if we all woke up the next day and realized we did not need whiteness, the whole world would stop.
Well, I specifically said white people, but we can also say whiteness too.
The reason why I'm saying whiteness is because it's very still much connected to white folks.
For
So
sure.
I personally feel, I just feel that the whole world would stop. It would cease to give entertainment if we all just said, we don't need y'all.
Yeah, nobody needs whiteness. Everyone should divest off top. But this is what, let me give this more context. I'm not
Yeah,
saying cease relationship with white people, because some
right.
of our best friends are white. That's real
Absolutely.
shit, actually.
Absolutely.
I mean,
That's
the
facts.
homies like in the cut.
That's
But when I'm
facts.
saying not need as a resource,
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
you see
yeah.
what I'm
I
saying?
feel
Like not need as a resource.
absolutely. Yeah, I feel like the all the sports that's gone. That's a wrap. NFL, basketball, that's a wrap. Goodbye. No more, really, no more Olympics, the track and field sprints, because we dominating that shit. That's a wrap. That's gone. I don't need to speak on hip hop. I mean, hey,
I just
all the record labels, it's a wrap. I feel
well,
like
and then maybe we could see black businesses flourish.
exactly. I've Black Eden and Black Wall Street have been two things that I feel can make a huge comeback if we all can get on the same wavelength as black people. I personally feel like those two things, because they happened. And when I've started studying that, I'm like, okay, so there is proof that when we come together, we can create greatness. Like, cool, that's a fact. That has been proven already. And I think I mean, even black culture in itself is proof that when we come together, we create greatness. I mean, damn near.
We only know how to create dope shit.
Exactly my point. So I feel it's a matter of, I think when we really start to realize that we are, one of my brothers, shout out to Mookie, he was made a metaphor, an analogy about like debit cards or credit cards. Yeah, credit cards. And he was saying we are the black card. You know, like how that's like the most rarest card you can get. Like you got to be on the list to get it. He was like, we are the black card. Like we don't need connections to white folks like that. We are the connection. You know, and I'm like, at the end of the day, we have to start seeing ourselves as the connection. We literally have to see ourselves as the source. But I do not think that, which also is a clear indication to the lack of education that is still on us as black people, right? And the still lostness that we have in our souls of like this thriving to figure out who we are and why do we belong in this world other than just creating dope shit, right? And I think the more that we start to go deeper into our roots, we can start realizing that we are the source of everything. And when
Tell
you
the people.
realize that,
Tell the people.
when I started realizing that as a black person, when I started decolonizing, it completely switched my perspective of how I walk into white spaces, how I carry myself, how I speak, how I negotiate business deals, everything. Because then there was no more capitalism that was over my head. It was just me. That's it. And of course, like this isn't a night and day situation, but you have to say to yourself, black people, am I really worth it? Because if you do not see your worth, then you're gonna always shift that worth onto, why don't you tell me my worth, white person? Why don't you tell me my
Well,
worth?
why don't you validate me? Why don't you
Exactly.
legitimize what I got going on?
Exactly. We got to get
And
to our source.
and I wonder if us living in our full humanity will inspire them to do that too, because really they don't have a clue how to do it.
Yeah,
Because
we were
whiteness has
never taught.
robbed them, right?
Exactly.
Whiteness has robbed them to a story.
Yeah.
The last word before we get out of, our Bible study tonight, because tonight's conversation is about black men collateral damages,
Yeah.
and I name myself black women as being part of that collateral damage. So if you could talk to black women, it's like that camera moment, right?
Oh man.
I know, and I didn't tell you this was gonna happen,
Damn,
so
you
you're
put me
gonna
in the
have to be
hot
off the camera. I
seat.
put you in a hot
Hot
seat. Speaking
seat.
for all of y'all out there. But if there was like a nugget or a reminder that you wanted your sister to know, right?
Hmm.
What would it be?
There's so much.
I know
One,
I didn't.
I think the first thing I would say actually is I'm sorry. I am deeply sorry for the amount of pain and contribution of white supremacy I've perpetuated over the last, since my decolonizing journey, over the last 27 years that I've subscribed to. So that would be the first thing. I'm sorry. And then secondly, I would say is to continue to get to your source of blackness. Like continue to just walk in your source. I feel like that's a powerful thing when you know you're the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
Like trees, right? Like trees.
Look,
We
you
are the roots of
the
it.
roots,
The roots. So when you
Jade. You
come
were
to
the
the root,
perfect.
golden.
You were the perfect person to have this conversation with. I want to have this conversation with more black men. I want us to get to the nuance and the context here. I
Yes.
want us to show other black people we can do hard things. We can have these tough conversations.
Yeah.
We can agree and hold each other firmly and in
Absolutely.
love, right? Because every day there's something that's taking our humanity away from us. So thank
Absolutely.
you for
Thank you.
being in
And I appreciate it.
community.
Yes.
Thank you for speaking to black women directly. Thank you for speaking into where the future lies for us.
Yes. Absolutely.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna send you some, not silk pajamas. I don't got it like that, but maybe get you a coffee cup. Send you a candle.
I can't with you, Keenan. Oh my God.
All right, look, we're gonna do this again. We got like
Yes,
5 or 6
we have
conversations,
to.
y'all.
We have
All
to.
right, be
All right, yo.
well, be blessed. I'm so thankful to you.
Likewise. All right, yo.
All right,
Take care.
night.
Peace.